So let's begin with the meeting Monday. Why did you want, I know that you had other things in mind as well, but what message did you want to convey to the council about the ordinance and their vote impending, at least at the time that you went up there and spoke?
Well, with respect to the proposal around amending inclusionary zoning, I thought that it was important that the council take this step. It's been 2.5 years. We have an ordinance that does not work, and this was a procedural vote to move this on to consideration from the county. There's still opportunities for the council to consider this, to get public input, but I felt that it was important before the end of my term to at least advance the ball and get people talking about this in a way that I hope will have and result in meaningful change here in the city of Albany.
What did you think of the amendment?
Well, look, I think that we had proposed a different amendment. This was the result of another council member saying, hey, you know, what about a proposal that would allow for this buy down of inclusionary zoning? And so we want there to be a robust debate around this. But the bottom line is this. We have had, in effect, a building moratorium in the city of Albany with respect to market rate housing. The formula put forth by the activists didn't work. And we have demonstrated that. This should have come as no surprise to anyone, anywhere in the city. I've spoken about it at my State of the City for the last 2 years. I sent a letter to the council. I sent a newsletter out to all of our residents talking about the impact of the council's ordinance, which I had vetoed twice, but that they overrode my veto. And I need to continue to communicate a sense of urgency. We are not building housing for the middle class in the city of Albany. That is the bottom line. This is a city that has 33% of the county's population, 53% of the county's rent-burdened residents, and 70% of the county's subsidized housing. The activists should be spending time in our surrounding communities advocating for affordable housing. The city of Albany has a disproportionate share of it, and under my leadership, we have built or renovated over 2,800 units of affordable housing. And so we need to be building housing for people who make $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year. We are missing out as all of the communities around us build market rate housing. And so the activists, as well-intentioned as they may be, have harmed our community for the last 2.5 years by not allowing anyone to affordably build market rate housing. And that is hurting our taxpayers and our residents.
So you're still on the end of full repeal, right? This amendment doesn't go far enough.
Well, if the numbers work, then I will support it. If the developers and those who lend money to developers to build housing say that there is enough of a return with the numbers that we proposed in order to see building come and development come, then I will support it. I never wanted to repeal and go to no inclusionary. I wanted to go back to what was working. Right. And so I am certainly willing to work with the council. That's how legislation gets passed, to work with the council. But they have to be realistic about the numbers. They can't continue to deceive our residents by leading them to believe that the numbers that they had proposed and that were enacted into law would result in any housing being built. We told them it would result in a moratorium. We asked them to change the numbers to something that would work. They refused, and for 2.5 years, we have had basically a moratorium on market rate housing in this city. That harms our tax base, it harms our residents. It means that people who are coming out of law school or the College of Pharmacy or UAlbany and want to stay in our community can't find a place to live. And so I am frustrated because I do not concur with the method that they have undertaken, but I certainly want to see affordable housing built in every neighborhood in our city, but we have to do it in a way that allows the market to build housing at all income levels, and their legislation doesn't do that.
I have spoken, as you might imagine, to a lot of different people about this. I heard some of the things said at the meeting, and there has also been from advocates in the community saying the city needs to do more to keep housing online. in terms of unfit, unsafe, needs to hold landlords more accountable, because when housing's built, they're saying just as much many people are being displaced because of unfit, unsafe, things of that nature. What do you make of that argument, and is there an opportunity maybe to invest more in that kind of thing to be able to keep housing online as you try to build more at the same time?
I think that this is all part of the same problem. You have advocates who passed legislation that put a moratorium on market rate housing in our city. That allows bad landlords to have substandard housing because there's no competition. There's no new housing being built. So they need to look in the mirror when they're talking about the unintended consequences of their misguided legislation. It has resulted, I believe, in more housing being substandard, not being invested in by landlords because they don't have any competition. And so that is what you get when you don't allow the market to build in the city of Albany. And I think demonizing developers is absolutely the wrong path to be on. We have developers who invest and take risk in our city. They are building housing for people, and they want to build housing for people at all income levels. And that's how a healthy community grows and thrives. That's how you get a downtown grocery store. And so I think that when we look at the challenges that we have with substandard housing in the city of Albany, I predicted that those who are bad actors in this city would love the inclusionary zoning changes that this council made, because they were effectively keeping decent housing from being built in our city.
Then what, if you want to go back to the way it was before, clearly someone saw a need here, right? Someone said there is something that we could do. What is another option then, if you want to go back to the way this ordinance was before, to be able to incentivize specifically market rate housing at the end of the day?
Well, what they wanted to incentivize was they wanted to create more affordable units in more affluent areas of the city. That has not happened. Instead, we have seen a huge influx of very low income development happening in the very neighborhoods where we already have high density of low income housing. And so it didn't work. They did not get the outcome that they were seeking. And so I want to see how we can work with advocates. One of the things that we want to do if we are having a buy down is that funding would go into a housing trust that could be used for affordable home ownership, to incentivize housing, and to help ensure that we do continue to build affordable housing in the city of Albany for very low income people. But affordable housing needs to be affordable, again, to people at all income levels. And to me, where do we go as a city if we are building nothing that is affordable to somebody who just graduated from law school or nursing school or just got their teaching degree? We need for them to live and want them to live in the city of Albany. And the way that this statute was drafted by the advocates quashed all of the development of housing for the middle class and for those who are seeking to live in our city and do not need to have subsidized housing.
You did say earlier the demonization of developers, and this is a question I've asked other officials as well. Are they trying to get too much meat on the bone by building luxury units? Because you hear that a lot about housing in general in New York State, and I know there's even legislation up the street that they've said to try to curtail this idea of luxury housing where they can make the most money possible. Are they trying to get too much out of housing without building the housing you're talking about?
Look, there's a market here, and they are competing in that market. So a developer in Albany is competing with a developer in Troy, in Rensselaer, in Colony, in Guilderland. And so they are going to build what the market can bear. And we need housing at many levels throughout the market. But the bottom line is this: if you're going to build housing, you have to get a loan. And a bank has to look at what the potential return is and make a determination as to whether they are going to fund that activity. And the way that the current statute is drafted, no bank is going to loan money to build market rate housing in the city of Albany because the numbers don't work. And there are people who can pound their fist on the table and say that a developer shouldn't be able to get an X% return on their investment. Well, this is still a market economy, And so if they're not going to get that return on their investment, they're simply going to go elsewhere and build that product. And so I think we cut off our nose to spite our face, as they say, by those who are believers in a socialist, more socialistic type of housing situation. That's not the market that we have. I've had advocates tell me banks should be willing to make less money by supporting this housing. Well, that's not how bank regulations work. And so I live in a world that has certain expectations, certain rules, and certain paradigms in which developers are making investments. And so how can we work together with the council to find a paradigm that will work for all of us? And demonizing developers is, to me, not the path that I want to be on. I have seen developers take tremendous risk in this city and build in places where people told them, you are not going to be able to make money. But they believed in the city and they wanted to invest here. And that's what we want to incentivize.
Finally, we know that you have a little more than a month left. What kind of conversations have you had with the next administration about this topic specifically?
Well, as most people know, our incoming mayor is our chief city auditor, and she has conducted a housing audit. That audit is going to be released early in December, and I believe that she has confirmed through that audit, through experts who came in and looked at what we're doing, that we don't have it right. And she knows how important it is to grow our tax base. I'm very proud of the fact that our tax base has grown exponentially over the last 12 years, but much of that growth came from transformational market rate development in all corners of our city. And I believe that that is positive. It put us on a path to grow our population. It put us on a path to be able to put more money into the coffers of the library and the school district and keep our taxes down. So those are all positive things that the next mayor is going to want to have those tools in her toolbox. And we need to be able to get to a solution that ends this building moratorium that we've seen for the last 2.5 years.
Mayor, thank you.
Thanks.